About 20 years ago, a friend and I visited New Zealand, and the scenery is just spectacular, especially on the southern island. If you saw any of the Lord of the Rings movies, most of that was filmed in New Zealand. One thing I remember vividly about the trip is that when you left the town that you were in and going to the next one, you had to be sure that you had something to eat and drink in your car, because you could drive long, long distances and never see a place where you could get something to eat. No golden arches back there. And no golden arches in the time of Christ either. If you were traveling, you needed to provide your own provisions for eating and drinking. And the story in today's gospel is about a young boy who did what he was supposed to do. He brought along 5 loaves and 2 fish. The story develops that Jesus tells the disciples to feed the 5,000. And all they can say is that we don't have enough money, but we do know of a boy who has a little bit of food, but they did not think it was anywhere near enough. Jesus told them to bring the food to him. He blesses it and told the disciples to distribute it. And there were over 12 baskets left over. Commentators tell us that this is kind of a premonition of the Eucharistic feast, where Jesus will take bread and bless it and distribute it. But what really happened that day? I have no problem believing that a real miracle took place, and somehow the fish and the bread were multiplied. But some commentators say that perhaps what happened can be explained in a more human way, non-miraculous way. These commentators would say it's all about sharing. Perhaps when folks saw what the boy was doing, sharing his food with Jesus, those who also had brought food along began to share with others as well. Isn't that true? When we see someone else being generous, we might be tempted to imitate their generosity as well. This is not limited to financial generosity, but it certainly is present there. Don't some companies have matching grants? If you give something, they will give something. Or sometimes we see what's called challenge grants, when one donor will say, if a bunch of you give all of this money, then I will give as much. In non-financial ways, when we see folks being generous, we might think, well, maybe I can get involved as well. Here at Christ the King, there are plenty of examples of generous folks giving of their time and talent. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds are involved in different ways. They're at the thrift shop or the food pantry or in faith formation or cooking for the Noah shelter or RCIA, bereavement groups, all sorts of things that are people sharing of themselves with others. And it really should at least prompt us to say, well, maybe I can do that as well. All you have to do is go to our website or just look in the bulletin and see what things are going on. Maybe you can help as well. If you're just visiting Christ the King, I'm sure when you go back home, you could find, well, maybe not as good as we are, but find all sorts of different things that can happen and could use you to make it happen. The multiplication of the loaves and the fishes can be all about sharing. How are you being called to share yourself with others?